Westholme is working with the land to create nature-led Australian Wagyu. Westholme believes that when nature leads, flavor follows. Learn more at westholme.com.
You're listening to Heritage Radio Network.
Well, hello. Welcome to All in the Industry on Heritage Radio Network. I'm your host and producer, Shari Bayer, and it is August 9th, 2024. And this is our 395th episode of this series, which is dedicated to behind-the-scenes talent in the hospitality industry. Today, I'm taking you to Chicago for a conversation that I had in June while I was in town for the James Beard Awards. And it's with an amazing local chef and restaurateur who has a few hospitality concepts and has established himself as a respected leader in our industry. And I will introduce him fully in a moment. But first, as I do in every show, I will start out with my PR tip, and then we will have my interview and close out with my solo dining experience. As the founder of Bayer Public Relations, I'm going to tip the show off with my PR tip of the week. So today's tip is to focus on mental health. Yes, our minds need taking care of, just like the rest of our bodies. Without a healthy mind, the rest doesn't even matter. Our headspace is key to a long, happy, and productive life full of great memories and achievements. And although we all know this, sometimes we can forget to slow down and make sure that our mental game is on point. As the 2024 Olympics in Paris have been taking place, Team USA's gymnastics GOAT, Simone Biles, reminded us that we must put our mental health first before we can achieve greatness on the mat and beyond. So let's strive to be like Simone, a true gold inspiration to the world. That's my tip today. Okay, so I'm very excited to share the show with you today. It's an interview which I recorded in June in Chicago, while, as I said, I was in town for the James Beard Awards 2024. And very soon I will be broadcasting my coverage of the James Beard Awards, including my red carpet interviews. So stay tuned for that. So on today's show, my guest is Erick Williams, chef and founder of Virtue Hospitality Group based in Chicago, which includes Virtue Restaurant and Bar, Mustard Seed Kitchen, Daisy's Po' Boy and Tavern, and Top This Mac and Cheese. Erick has carved a special niche in the restaurant industry with his persistence, passion, and drive. In November 2018, he opened Virtue as his first solo concept, nestled in the heart of the historic Hyde Park neighborhood on Chicago's South Side. The restaurant combines his love of Southern cuisine and his insatiable study of history and art as they relate to food culture. Erick and Virtue have been featured in a host of local and national media, and in 2022, he was named Best Chef Great Lakes by the James Beard Foundation, making history as the first Black chef to win in this category. In November 2021, inspired by his experience providing takeout only during the pandemic, Erick opened Mustard Seed Kitchen in Chicago, a takeout and delivery only concept featuring a menu of high-quality, approachable meals. And less than a year later, in August 2022, he launched his third concept, Daisy's Po' Boy and Tavern, which evokes the vibrancy of New Orleans through its most celebrated sandwich, located a few steps away from Virtue. And Erick's Virtue team is now getting ready to open a new Mexican cocktail bar called Cantina Rosa, celebrating Mexican culture in the same way that Virtue has done celebrating Black culture in Hyde Park. So that's Erick's short bio. Without further ado, I'm going to get to our interview, which took place at Virtue On Saturday morning, I sat down with Erick and we spoke for almost an hour. So I hope you enjoy our conversation. I certainly did. And I'll come back after and share my solo dining experience. So here you go, my conversation with chef and restaurateur Erick Williams. Enjoy. Good morning, Erick Williams.
Good morning. How are you today?
I'm really good.
That's
I'm
awesome.
excited to be here. And how are you?
I'm well. Thank you for asking.
Last time I was here was a year ago at your restaurant, Virtue. Had a phenomenal dinner.
Awesome.
I was just thinking about the gumbo. I could have gumbo for breakfast. That's what I was thinking about in my cab ride here.
Yeah, it's one of those things that could happen throughout the day, multiple times actually.
So delicious. So I always like to start out with my guests and find out about their background, how they got into the industry. So you want to take us back a little bit?
Whoa, that's way back. So I got in the industry maybe about 30 years ago. It could be 30 plus at this point. And I started working as a short order cook. And
Here in Chicago.
yes, here in Chicago, the place no longer exists. And it was a little bar and grill. And then I moved to a restaurant that I worked at for a few years. Started as a prep cook and made my way to being a salad cook and then hot apps. And then I left there and I did a short stint at a hotel. And once I left there, I went to MK, where I served for about 2 decades. And I was part of the opening team of MK and the closing team of MK. And by that time, I had worked from I started on the salad station of MK and then worked my way to being the longest standing executive chef and a partner. The chef and owner was Michael Cornick.
Okay.
The restaurant was named after him, hence the initials MK. And that is where I really cut my teeth and learned so many things about how to manage a kitchen, how to manage a team, how to read a profit and loss statement, everything from food costs to linen prices was part of that undertaking. And so I learned a lot about the business in general.
Yeah, well, I was thinking in chef or restaurant years, that's a really long time to be at a place. And I'm sure you gained a tremendous amount of knowledge and, I don't know, responsibility.
Yeah, the industry evolves a bit. It really prepared me for, but also grounded me in some best practices that I still use today.
When did you get the idea, or was it always in the back of your mind that you wanted to open your own restaurant?
Interestingly enough, I didn't aspire to open my own restaurant. I had some ideas that would have possibly led me to catering, and some other ideas that may have led me to private chefing. And the opportunity presented itself, and I went for it.
And what year is this?
This was, it feels like it was so long ago. This was 2018, fall of 2018, when we opened Virtue. So I want to say the opportunity kind of presented itself top of the year 2018.
And was it an opportunity based on location, or was it just, I don't know if you know this about me, but I went to University of Michigan, and afterward I moved to Chicago. I
Okay.
lived here from 1995 to 1998, and
Wow.
I worked in restaurants. I was a office manager at Rock Bottom Brewery,
Okay.
the one downtown on
Uh-huh.
State and Grand. I was there. I went to cooking school at the Cooking Academy of Chicago, which doesn't exist anymore. And I was a server then at Charlie Trotter's. And I dabbled in a few other things. But
Okay.
yeah, I'm just bringing that up because I have a little reference point for those early days, my early days in my career, I guess, in Chicago.
Uh-huh.
And I think when I left, Blackbird was just opening in the West Loop, and that neighborhood has completely changed in the past 20 years plus. But this neighborhood, I knew of, but I wasn't familiar with.
Yes.
So how did you come to this neighborhood here?
A friend called and had some ideas, and the restaurant that was here was having some challenges. So there was rumor that this particular space, under the right circumstances, could be available. Once we started hashing out what the terms could be, then the idea started to come to light. And I then started looking at other spaces. So it could have been this space, it could have been another space, depending on how things laid out. And once I started doing my due diligence, I literally sat outside and counted the amount of people walking in and out of the restaurant and how many people were walking up and down the street. And so after a few weeks of tallies and a lot of uncertainty, I started exploring the option to be in Hyde Park and started thinking about the narrative around what the restaurant should or could be.
And from those initial moments or thoughts, is the restaurant today what that was, or did it evolve over time?
It definitely evolved over time. I think every restaurant that becomes successful has a bit of an iteration where it starts to evolve and change. And I think the core of what we wanted the restaurant to be is that. But, you're a business, and that's, what restaurants are. We don't talk about them many times like they're businesses. We talk about them like they're passion projects. But in order for them to stay in existence, they need to be run and managed at a high level. And the business itself has changed a bit. When you start a business, you're really speculating what you believe you can do and what you would like to do and hope to do versus what you physically can do, what the business dictates and your client dictates is allowable. And we're really, really happy with the adjustments that were made and where the restaurant stands today.
Yes, it's very true. It's a business. It's a passion project, but it's, you gotta make it work. You gotta make the numbers work. So for people who haven't been to Virtue, how do you describe your cuisine here and concept?
So this was one of the exercises that I had to undertake when thinking about pitching the restaurant. A friend of mine who is a writer said to me, if you can't explain your restaurant in 2 sentences, people are already confused. And so I wanted to make sure that we could define the restaurant in 1 sentence. And then if we needed to elaborate, we would have the equipment to do that. And so Virtue Restaurant is an American Southern restaurant. If we went beyond it being an American Southern restaurant and you wanted me to take a deeper dive, then I would explain to you that Southern food has fed our nation for many, many years, with Africans being the primary labor force, which means they were, as it was stated in years past, the domestics and the cooks. We were also the labor force in the fields. And so all of the things that we ate at one point that relied upon agriculture, which is everything, touched the hands of a African laborer at some point. And so when you think about how many people, descended upon the Americas at one point and what those cultures were, everyone brought their wares with them. So we see Italian influences in the South. We see Spanish threads all throughout the South. You see Polish techniques, sausage making. There are German techniques. And those Africans that we now call African Americans or Black folk had a way of taking those items and those techniques and then manipulating them both to suit their needs and the needs of the folk that they were feeding. And then we had this really small event, and I'm being sarcastic, that took place called the Great Migration. And anytime food travels from one region to another, it changes. Black people leaving the South in the hopes of both freedom and opportunity. Now in the North, where mechanized canning is taking place, commercial preserving is taking place, a far cry from the organic or sustainable approaches to the past that were used in the past. And so that leads us through the soul era, soul and now soul foods. So there is a focus on rice cookery. Okra is a premium product in our space. We're not convinced that Black folk only ate what people would call the scraps in the South, because hogs yield more than ears, feet, and chitterlings. But if you talk about an animal in context, Asia eats the entire animal. Europe eats the entire animal. Mexico eats the entire animal. Spain eats the entire animal. And so did Africans, even though there is not a ton of pork throughout Africa. And so the way you process a goat, a lamb, process cattle and pork is not extremely different in terms of how you dissect the anatomy of those animals. The muscle structure is definitely different in some, but quartering any one of those animals is very close to the same process. So there was a familiarity with processing whole animals, and nothing went to waste in the South, nothing went to waste. Nothing goes to waste in the countries that I just named, or any country for that matter. We've seen, as we look at history, that there were moments absent of slavery where there was classism and the elite, the kings and queens, ate one way, and anyone who wasn't or could be considered peasant ate, the not so premium cuts. But even that theory evolves because we take a thing like lobster that was definitely fed to slaves and prisoners, and it's a premium ingredient now. So the term premium has been altered throughout the years. I can remember when skirt steak was cheap. I can remember when oxtails were cheap. And now, based on their price, they have become premium ingredients, and oxtails are sought after now. And there aren't that many tails on an ox. They all just get one.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. And your menu, you have, I mentioned earlier that the gumbo, I remember having your catfish, has the menu itself here, has that evolved as well? I'm sure it has. And do you also have, you doing specials that you bring in, or?
So there are a few core items that stay on the menu, and then we rotate everything else seasonally. And based on what is, the best we can get our hands on. And then sometimes we find a new ingredient by way of spice, or we learn how to use something differently than we may have used it in the past, or had it introduced to us as culinarians. The gumbo does not move. The catfish has not moved since we opened. There's a house salad that has not moved, and we have changed the short rib many times, actually. But people, every time we change it, ask, when is it coming back? They will order what we go with, but people really love that short rib. And as a chef, you kind of get tired of cooking the same thing. But I think an important way to look at it is, I'm sure that every person that performs at a concert really wants to perform their new release or their new song that they're inspired by. But most of us want what would be considered the greatest hits. Mm-hmm. And not just because it's really great music, because to say that that's great music is to say that the other music might not be as great. But it resonates with us in a way where it starts to build nostalgia around the memories. Who did we have dinner with? What were we doing when we heard that song? What place were we in our life? And so when you think about going to a concert and going to dinner, there's some parallels there. And so we yield to our guests. And I work really hard to take the ego out of it. And I work really hard to develop a team that takes the ego out of it. And we really keep it simple. When it's all said and done, if your grandmother's pound cake was your favorite thing ever, should it stop being your favorite thing ever because your grandmother can make 20 other cakes? If your mother's oatmeal cookies were the best thing since sliced bread, that's really what you want. And it doesn't matter how many other cookies they bake. I mean, I've heard many times someone saying, you better go in there and get some of this. Because once so-and-so walks in the kitchen, they're going to try to eat them all, right? That's their jam. And, home is a place where I don't know if it's fair, but it feels natural to be selfish. It feels natural to be a little competitive in the kitchen and try to take more of a certain thing than anybody else, because in your mind, your loved one really made that for you, and they just made enough for everybody else to be a part of it. And that's the fun, in my humble opinion, of sharing food, because it gives us place, it gives us identity, it gives us memory, and it also gives us warmth and comfort.
Yeah, no, it's very true. I recently did an interview with John George, and he said something, with regards to changing the menu, how people, want those dishes, and sometimes they take it off and then put it back on. But I believe he said it's almost easier to open a new restaurant with new dishes than to change something at one of his restaurants, which is maybe why he keeps going and opening more. And I want to get to your other concepts too, but before, Damar Brown, has he been your chef since the beginning?
So Damar has been with me just about since day one. He was transitioning from another restaurant to make his way over here. So he started really early on. And he's worked with me in the past. So we've been working together on projects for over a decade. And Damar cut his teeth working with me. He started as a young entry-level cook and has worked his way up to being the person who heads the kitchen here. But when we initially opened, I was in the kitchen every single night, if not on the line, expediting the kitchen. And a dear friend who was also in the midst of a transition and really identifying and flushing out a concept that he had in his mind, and that person being Jenna Tomaska, was the chef that was here day one and worked with me until Damar came, and then the three of us worked together to really try to iron out the many, many wrinkles that we had in a new restaurant that was presenting in a way that felt unique to both the South Side and definitely to Chicago.
Yeah, well, that's amazing that you've had such a long history working together. And I was going to ask about accolades. You've received many accolades over the past few years. Congratulations. A couple are James Beard Awards, which is why I'm in town to go to this year's awards. But from 2022, you received Best Chef Great Lakes. Damar last year got Emerging Chef Award, which is amazing, really incredible. Do you remember, what was the first recognition that the restaurant or you received that kind of changed the game a little, or maybe, I don't know, resonated most with you in a sense, being like, wow, this is I don't want to put words in your mouth, but like this is amazing, or this is incredible that my work is being recognized?
There were two instances, and we have received a lot of coverage and a lot of recognition. And there are two that come to my mind that were where we were a little bit excited. It's not the best word for me, but that really caught us off guard. One was a New York Times article when I was named one of the 16 Black chefs in America changing food.
I remember that. It's an amazing piece.
Thank you. They did an incredible job, and I don't say that from a biased standpoint. If I had not been in it, I felt like they did an amazing job. We didn't expect that at the time. And I don't mean like we would have expected it the next year. It's just rare that the timing lines up, that you have a new restaurant and then you get a national piece written about you.
Yeah, I mean, it's huge. In the New York Times.
Yeah, so that was pretty incredible. The second time was in the middle of the pandemic when Jeff Gornier wrote on a list, or added us to a list of 100 restaurants that America could not afford to lose. And that was another moment where it's like, okay, all right. And I say that not to dilute any of the other recognition that we got. But those moments were so unexpected. It was like receiving something that you could not have imagined having. I could have imagined being recognized by the Beard Foundation. I could have imagined working alongside or being recognized at some level and a Michelin guide. Another interesting award was when we got an award from the mayor. That was pretty wild. It's like who gets an award from their mayor?
You do.
I guess, you know.
Yeah, no, that's amazing.
Yeah, and so there were moments like that where they were just, quite frankly, a little hard to comprehend. You know, it's just like, okay, all right, I guess we're doing this now. I will say, though, that every award that we've gotten has only humbled us and furthered our pursuit to do more and expand the narrative around Southern cooking and spotlight that particular fare in a way that makes people proud, that allows Southern fare to be recognized at the same level of every other cuisine in the nation and beyond. And that's the reason I get up in the morning. I don't get up in the morning for awards. I can't pay any bills with awards. My child is not excited beyond the moment of seeing a medal or hearing that, you know, something cool happened to his dad. My wife celebrates it, you know, as many people do, in the moment. And then we move on. And so it's fun to be validated, but that's not why I get up in the morning. I get up in the morning because I think the work that we're doing is important. I think it's important to my ancestry. I think it's important to every cook and every chef that's ever taken humble ingredients and fed people in a very authentic and passionate way, and allowed sustenance to be more than just a meal.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. Recent award or accolade to touch on that I saw, and I am going to the Aspen Food and Wine Classic, was Food and Wine Magazine's new Game Changer Award from 2024. That's huge.
Thank you. I can't, it's hard to see outside of myself. And
I feel you.
Yeah. When you're in the moment, or when you're in the spotlight, you feel how you feel. And so what that feels like to me is a strong spirit of humility. It's not a strong spirit of excitement or it doesn't feed my ego. It doesn't make me feel like I've arrived in any way. I have a friend who's a dear friend, Mindy Siegel.
Oh, I know that name.
Yeah, hands down one of the best bakers in the nation. And Mindy used to call me for maybe the first, 2 or 3 years. From the time the restaurant was open. And every time someone wrote me up, she would either call me personally or send me a note. And it was the same message every time. For every bit of recognition you get, you need to work that much harder. And I don't see recognition as a burden, but I do see recognition as an opportunity for others to get to know your space and understand your space, but it's also an opportunity for people to misunderstand your space. And we can't protect ourselves from critics or naysayers or bad reviews. We can protect ourselves from getting too comfortable. And that's how we approach our craft. We want to wake up every day hitting the ground running and really teaching and supporting a team that embodies that run, that grind, that passion, that commitment to a particular cause, a particular style of food, a particular approach to integrity.
Yes. Well, and you've become, I'm trying to remember when I first met you. It might have been at the Philly Chef Conference. You've been a speaker on many panels. You're here, I believe, tomorrow doing a talk with the James Beard Awards. I feel you're using your voice, you're using your platform. I feel you're using your recognition to make change and to support the industry. But yeah, I feel you're a wonderful spokesperson for the chef and restaurant community. And I love going to anything that I see your name in the lineup. So what's the talk you're doing? It's tomorrow, and are you doing more than that?
I'm only doing one talk. I've agreed to do one thing and one thing only. I am horrible with names and titles. So I feel really fortunate to have an assistant that keeps those things in the forefront of my memory. And I have learned that the best practice for me to tame my anxiety is to not think about what I am doing tomorrow.
Okay.
And to really focus on what I'm doing today. And I know that might sound crazy. If there's something that I need to do a deeper dive in terms of prep, whether it be prepping a recipe, an event, or a speaking engagement, then it'll continue to come up in my schedule. But panel discussions, which often involve quick fires and that feel more casual, a conversation similar to the one we're having now, I don't spend a lot of time prepping for those. I think my life's work is the prep. And so I just render myself vulnerable in those moments, and I work hard to tell the truth about the things that are important to the industry and things that I think might be important or interesting to the listener, and I don't spend that much time with it.
Yeah, being in the moment is so important.
Yeah.
So, can you talk a little about your other restaurant concepts and what was the second thing you launched?
So we currently have Virtue Restaurant, Daisy's Po' Boy and Tavern.
Which is down the block, right?
Yes, it's literally around the corner. We also have Top This Mac and Cheese, and we have Mustard Seed Takeout Kitchen. And Mustard Seed Takeout Kitchen was a natural progression for us as we were doing a lot of takeout food during the pandemic, and realized that there's a real need for a chef's kiss to dinner, and home meal replacement. And I 100% believe that statement because my family eats out of the restaurant twice a week.
I haven't been there yet. Yet is the key word in that sentence.
And that's totally fine. We're not going anywhere. Daisy's is a concept that was born out of the fact that my 92-year-old uncle, who has been in my life since birth, is married to my aunt, Daisy, and he was the first male to teach me how to cook anything in the kitchen. And he is a New Orleans man. I lost my aunt during the pandemic, but not due to the pandemic. And I thought that it would be a lovely way to both honor my love and affection for her vibrant spirit and honor and respect my uncle in a way that was very meaningful to he and I and the rest of our family. Top This Mac and Cheese was born from the amount of response and really passionate and considerate response around the mac and cheese in Virtue. And that mac and cheese, that recipe was created by Chef Brown. And this idea that we could do a pop-up around mac and cheese and these toppings. So we wanted to expand mac and cheese beyond the idea of like cracker crumbs or breadcrumbs and give you a dish that could feel similar to what you would have on a plate, What happens if I just have fried chicken and mac and cheese for dinner today, or blackened shrimp, or pork belly and mac and cheese. And so that is a really fun concept that's born out of, two chefs hanging out and thinking about food in a way that felt, both natural but collaborative. And so those are the four concepts that allow us to have Virtue Hospitality Group.
Are you planning to grow your hospitality group? Do multiple locations of any of those? Do you have a new concept in the back of your mind? I would think you probably have many concepts floating in your mind.
We do have a bar that we're working on right now.
Oh, that's fun.
That's been announced. Potentially fall of this year, we'll have a mezcal and tequila bar in the family. And then
in this neighborhood?
Yes, it's also around the corner. It'll actually be closer to the restaurant than Daisy's, if that were even possible. And that'll help us manage some of our overflow and also bring a really exciting cultural destination to the community by way of spirits. So we're looking forward to that.
Would you expand beyond Chicago?
There have been some talks from developers and management groups on potentially getting me to other cities and states. But until a deal is done, everybody's just talking.
Okay.
So.
Well, but that's it's a good answer there because stay tuned. We'll see. Okay, so before, love to play my speed round, but before we do that, just one last question. I think I have this book out called Chef Wise, and it's on chef advice. So I love asking chefs, what's your top advice for a young cook or someone thinking of maybe getting into this industry who's considering being a chef or restaurateur? What would you say is top advice?
Top advice is always read and then apply what you're reading. Take a book, any book, read through it, read through the notes, find recipes that speak to you, pick the most difficult ones, work through them, and perfect them. I think that is probably the most important bit of advice I could share with someone. Read and cook. Read and cook. Read and cook. I still read and cook. I don't ever get too big, or I don't ever think I'm cooking well enough to stop reading and to stop cooking. I think there's a notion that chefs create everything and from scratch. And a lot of what we do is we work through a series of techniques in our head that offer a finished product. No chef last week on earth has invented a braised anything. They may be the first one to present, braised possum, braised beaver, whatever the obscure ingredient could be. But braising has been around for a very long time, and we could argue over who best represents braised foods, being food that has been gently cooked and liquid, and most often in a oven or a version of an oven, live fire in what we would consider to be a Dutch oven, cast iron pot or enamel. But we can change the ingredients, we can change the approach. The technique has been here before many of us. So, and we can take a new approach to the technique. So, read and cook.
Read and cook. Excellent advice. I love it. Okay, so will you play my speed round with me?
Sure, let's do it.
Okay, so I'm going to name a couple things and you get to pick your preference, such as chocolate or vanilla.
Okay.
Okay, so eat in at home or eat out at a restaurant?
Depends on the mood.
What's your mood right now?
My mood right now would be eat at a restaurant.
Okay. How about indoor dining or al fresco dining?
Always indoor dining for me.
Always indoor?
Yeah. I'm not a fan of flies.
Okay. That's a good reason. Wine, beer, cocktail, mocktail, or champagne?
Yeah, I'm so not good at this. So I drink for a living, and I want to taste all the things. Champagne happens to be one of my favorite libations because it always feels festive. and it's always refreshing. But I drink them all equally.
Okay. There's no rules to my game. Everything works for me. Small plates or large plates?
I love small plates, and I'll leave that there.
Tasting menu or a la carte?
These days, a la carte.
Communal table or chef's counter?
Communal table.
This is the one I ask that can be its own show or its own podcast series. Tipping or all-inclusive charge?
Tipping.
Okay. Chicago Cubbies or White Sox?
I don't ever pick one. Even though the Sox are doing a horrible job right now. I grew up on the west side of Chicago, so that puts me in the center of the city. So I don't have that same allegiance to one side of town or the other.
Yeah, I support. I love going to games. However, I would take Cubbies because I always loved that stadium. I live by Wrigleyville, and one summer I actually worked as a cocktail waitress at Sports Corner, which is right there. Okay. It's changed a lot over the years.
Yes, it's become, dramatically.
Yes, and even they added on to the stadium, and I know expanded it. But yeah, Wrigley has always been my favorite stadium.
Okay.
Not like I'm supposed to answer the questions, but I'll throw that in there.
It's okay. I would add this for texture. You're from the north side, and north siders, just like south siders, pick the adjacent stadium, and they argue and fuss about it. It's personal to them, just like your neighborhood, your community, your tribe is personal. I don't have that same connection.
Yeah.
What I do have a connection with, and a very personal connection with, as a lifetime resident of Chicago, is the idea that I've had the opportunity to see every single team that we have win a championship in my lifetime. And that feels pretty incredible. So, the Bulls have won multiple championships, Blackhawks have won multiple championships, the Cubs have won in my lifetime, the Sox have won in my lifetime. We have had our newest member being the Chicago Sky, the women's basketball team, win a championship as well. And when you think about that in context, there are cities that have never won a championship and some that haven't won in, a plethora of years. And we have the huge fortune of activity around championship leadership and championship execution over a span of years. And that feels really, really incredible.
Yes. And I'll note, I believe that summer I worked there, the Cubs started the season 0-14, if my memory serves correct.
That could be true. Chicago likes to do it the hard way.
Yeah.
Like, we eke out a win. So.
Yeah. But yeah, I love going to games and supporting teams, and the Bulls. Yeah, I remember my days when I lived here. It was good times for Chicago Bulls. Always good times. But okay, I got three more. I guess Chicago deep dish pizza or a New York slice.
Man, I'm gonna get run out the city for this one, but if I had a choice between deep dish pizza and a New York slice, it would be a New York slice all day.
We can cut this out of the show.
It's okay. You can definitely cut it out if you need to. But deep dish pizza, for me, as a culinarian, feels more like lasagna than it does pizza. Like layers of sauce and product and pie dough. It's not my jam. Now, if you were fair in your questioning, which you aren't, then you would ask me
Thank you.
a New York slice versus a Chicago slice, then I would pick Chicago.
Okay.
I do love the charcoal flavor in the old school pizzerias in New York.
Yeah.
But Chicago pizza it's bar none delicious. And squares over slices, because we cut pizza in squares, and it's a vibe.
It's a vibe. And where would you go for that slice?
There are multiple places that I would go to, but I just recently did a list because I am a new recruit to Open Table, and they asked me for some suggestions on Open Table restaurants, and I named all my favorite Open Table restaurants, and then I got a little hate mail from some of my friends that aren't on Open Table. So these days, I'm a little gun shy on naming restaurants, because if I forget one, I might find myself in trouble with some of my good friends.
I hear you. Yeah. But maybe I'll see you tomorrow. Open Table's doing a little cocktail party. They throw a good party. I'm a supporter.
They do throw a good party.
I like that team. Okay, the last two are cheese plate or dessert.
I'm a cheese kind of guy. Yeah.
And then also you're going to say this one doesn't make sense or not fair, but I'll do Manhattan, Brooklyn, or Chicago. I guess we could pick neighborhoods within Chicago, Hyde Park. Wrigleyville, Lakeview is the other area I lived in. Also North Side.
Chicago is the greatest city in the nation. And we have our challenges just like other cities do, but it's an incredible city to live in, to visit, to frequent. And I say that very biased because I live here, but I could move anywhere else in the nation, and I live here for a reason. It's the place that I love. It's the place that my family loves. I've got a lot of Chicago pride.
Yeah, no, I see it as you're speaking, and I hear it in your voice, and I love Chicago. It's a wonderful city, so it's wonderful to be here. Thank you so much for your time. That's the game. You win. Everyone wins. But it's really an honor to have time to sit and talk with you, to know you. I look forward to enjoying more of your cuisine, maybe this weekend, maybe over my lifetime. And congratulations on all of your success, and wishing you the best.
Thanks so much. I really appreciate that. Thanks for having me, Shari.
Thank you.
Whether you're a chef or just love going to restaurants, you know the best ingredients are everything, especially when it comes to beef. In Northern Australia, there's a different approach to raising high-quality beef. Westholme, based in Queensland and Northern Territory, is working with the land to create nature-led Australian Wagyu. Westholme stewards 16 million acres of rangeland guided by their natural ecosystem. They're led by a belief that if they balance the needs of their cattle with the needs of the environment, both can thrive. Westholme's team of rangeland experts and nature managers use a variety of tools to monitor and respond to the welfare of the environment, like satellites that assess grass health and on-the-ground research. Cattle are happier when they have the freedom to forage and explore, so Westholme ensures that they can roam wild, foraging at will for the first 2 to 3 years of their lives. Their cows graze on native grasses like Mitchell grass, which is only found in Australia, along with dozens of other plants, herbs, and seasonal legumes. The result is a high-quality Wagyu beef that reflects the terroir of Northern Australia and a flavor suited to complement any cuisine. Westholme believes that when nature leads, flavor follows. Learn more at westhome.com.
Welcome back to All in the Industry on Heritage Radio Network. I'm your host and producer, Shari Bayer. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Erick Williams, chef and founder of Virtue Hospitality Group based in Chicago, which includes Virtue Restaurant and Bar, Mustard Seed Kitchen, Daisy's Po' Boy and Tavern, and Top This Mac and Cheese, plus the upcoming Cantina Rosa, which I think is opening soon. Can't wait to check that out. So thank you, Erick, so much for joining me, and huge congratulations on all you've accomplished. It's quite impressive. And I look forward to seeing you again soon, back in Chicago or perhaps elsewhere. Okay, so it's time for my solo dining experience. So this week it's at Asador Bastian. Here is the rundown. The location, 214 West Erie Street in the iconic Flair House, a River North Gallery District townhouse that was originally built in 1983 in Chicago, Illinois. The concept, a Basque-inspired steakhouse from chefs Doug Psaltis and Christian Eckmann. The chef and owners are Doug Psaltis, who has worked in some of the most prestigious kitchens around the world, including Alain Ducasse's Essex House and Boulay Bakery, and previously he was with Let Us Entertain You Enterprises in Chicago. And his co-owner is Chef Hsing Chen, and they are both part of Eat Well Hospitality. So why did I go? Well, this was when I was in town for the James Beard Awards. I actually went the night before my interview with Chef Erick Williams. And not only is this a hot Chicago restaurant that's received many accolades, but I've known Doug for a while through his chef career, and I wanted to go see him and support him and have his delicious food. So, my experience, I made a reservation for one. It was a late-ish reservation. I think it was close to 9 o'clock because I was coming into town that day and giving myself plenty of time. And while I was walking over there, the restaurant texted me and told me that they were running a little behind and my table was going to be probably another 10 minutes. So when I arrived, that was the case. And I opted to sit at the bar downstairs, which they led me to as a place to wait for my table upstairs in the dining room. But I just decided to sit and eat at the bar because why not? I love bar dining. And the downstairs room had a really warm and sexy and intimate vibe. And so that's what I did. I sat at the end of the bar and I had lovely service from a bartending team of 2, and they helped me decide what to order. And a manager came by later and offered me a tour of the space, which included checking out the meat or butcher room and going upstairs to the kitchen and dining room on the second floor, where I got to see Doug, who was at the pass, and I got to see the amazing chef's table he has in his kitchen, and I got to catch up with him a little bit. And then I went downstairs and finished my meal, and I had a really lovely time. So what did I get? Okay, so I got the carpaccio of bluefin tuna, and then as my main, as a steakhouse, I got steak. And I went with the dry-aged Holstein, which is described as tender, robust, and popcorn. Yes, those are the words. And this is the only place in the city that is offering such a selection of dry-aged meats. And I don't eat steak that often, but I do appreciate a really great steak. So I'll tell you in a minute what I thought. Along with my steak, I also had a side of morels. There was some bread, and I had 2 desserts. The chef spoiled me there. I had the burnt Basque cheesecake and the golden chocolate hazelnut cake. So my take, great bread, love the tuna, very dressed with capers, perfectly thin. It was delicious. And then I really loved the steak. It went so well with the side of morels, so I'm glad I got those. And that was also a little bit of a splurge there on morels. They're more luxury mushroom, I guess you'd say. And it was a really perfect combo. The steak was just perfectly cooked. And I got that hint of popcorn, what they were describing in the flavoring. So it was really wonderful. And then dessert, I love them both. But if I had to pick a favorite, I'd go with the chocolate. I'm a chocolate lover, and It was a really delicious chocolate hazelnut cake. Okay, so the ambiance. So as I mentioned, it's in the two-story Flair House townhouse, which was originally built in 1883, and it's been refashioned today into a 35-seat ground floor bar and 55-seat reservation-only upstairs dining room. And it's a beautiful townhouse. It's on this alleyway corner, and the bar was very dimly lit, and the downstairs could be described as having a more masculine vibe with olive green leather banquettes and dark woods and candlelit and just kind of dark and sexy. And upstairs, that theme continued. It's a little more lit in the dining room, and the kitchen was beautiful. And I'd say if you can get a reservation at that chef's table, which I believe seats 10 people, then I say do it, because I think it's a really well-designed, awesome place to sit. And you get to be close to the chefs and see all the action. So I'd say it's perfect for dining solo at the bar or date night. Interesting tidbit, Doug and Hsing just opened another restaurant called Mano a Mano, which is a new pasta project in Logan Square. And also in that neighborhood, they have Andros Taverna, which I went to last time I was in Chicago, and that's a Greek restaurant. So they're building a nice restaurant group, and I can't wait to visit Mano a Mano next time I'm in town. And also, when I was in Chicago for the Beard Awards, I didn't have that many meals out, but I also went to Mitokaya Antojeria, which is an award-winning Mexican spot that I've been meaning to go to for a while, and it was great. I also went to Daisy's in Logan Square and Erick Williams' Daisy's Po' Boy and Taverns. I got the fried catfish po' boy and blackened cauliflower, which were both delicious. And also on this trip, I'll just mention I went to Open Table's Rosé Bowl at Bar Avec on LaSalle, and that was a really wonderful rooftop event. Okay, so the cost of my meal was $135. That's not including tax and gratuity or the desserts, which were comped. In making the reservation, just to note, I had left a deposit of $45, and so that was applied. So would I go back? Yes, I would. I'm a big fan. And so their website is asadorbastian.com. That's AsadorBastan.com, and their Instagram is the same at Asador Bastian. And if you want to follow Doug, his Instagram is The Real D Salt. That's The Real D PSALT. So thank you, Doug and Hsing and your entire team. Doug, it was really great to see you again, and congratulations on everything. Okay, so that's the show. Big thanks to Erick Williams for joining me in conversation, and congratulations on all of your success. Erick is the chef and founder of Virtue Hospitality Group based in Chicago, which includes Virtue Restaurant and Bar, Mustard Seed Kitchen, Daisy's Po' Boy and Tavern, and Top This Mac and Cheese, and soon to be opening Cantina Rosa. To find out more about Erick and his restaurants, you can go to cheferickWilliams.com and follow him at Chef Erick Williams, and Erick is spelled ERICK. And as always, you can follow me at Shari Bayer, at Bayer PR, and at All Industry. My Facebook page is All in the Industry. My websites are BayerPublicRelations.com, ShariBayer.com, and AllInTheIndustry.com. All of our shows are archived at heritageradionetwork.org. We are also on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Check out my book, Chefwise, Life Lessons from Leading Chefs Around the World by Phaidon, available wherever books are sold. Many thanks to my engineer today, Armin, and again to Erick and his publicist, Laura, and assistant, Chelsea. Thank you all. I'm your host and producer, Shari Bayer. I will be back soon with a new show. So stay tuned, and thank you as always for being part of All in the Industry. Bye. All in the Industry is powered by Simplecast. Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network, food radio supported by you. Keep in touch at heritageradionetwork.org/subscribe.